From Anshe Sfard Beth El Emeth Congregation, it's time to take 10 minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.
Welcome to our discussion of Parshat Mishpatim, to murder no sanctuary. If we look in the Parsha, it seems to imply that somehow you would have thought that you could get sanctuary, you could become innocent, you could be free from prosecution if you merely go to our sanctuary, to our Mizbeach, to our altar. It says, if you willfully plot against your neighbor and kill him willfully, with forethought, from within the altar, you should take him to be killed. Even if he's at the altar, should take him to be killed. Now, why would you think that you would not want to take him to be killed? Because you might think, after all, that who would kill someone in the sanctuary? You know, sometimes if someone is claiming sanctuary, then if you can't get him off the altar, you may have to kill him. And who would want to kill somebody in the sanctuary? After all, sanctuary is a place where no impurity is allowed. Anyone who had contact within 7 days of their contact with the dead cannot get into the temple. And you can actually kill someone there. So this is what one might have thought. In fact, Yoav, in the book of Kings 1, chapter 2, book of Melachim, Yoav, the general of David, who was going to be executed by the men of Shlomo, of Solomon, Yoav actually seems to believe this, or at least he thought somehow it would help, that to hold on to the horns of the altar, that somehow this would help. The truth is that it's according to the halakha, according to Jewish law, it's the gag, you have to go on the altar. You can't just hold on to the corners of the altar. But nonetheless, there is such an idea. The Midrash Hagadol, a Yemenite collection of Midrash, he says that actually if someone was bishogeg, if someone did something not on purpose, he killed someone unintentionally, then in fact, just like he can go to a city of refuge, an Ir Miklat, so too he could go to the altar. But he has to go on the altar, not just hold on to it. Where do you get this idea? See, the previous verse says that if you didn't plan it, you weren't hunting him, you weren't plotting it, but just somehow God brought it to you that somehow this person landed out killing someone. Then there will be a place later on in history that will be designated called an Ir Miklat, where a person can run away, take refuge. If they killed someone by mistake, the family should not avenge his blood. However, says the Torah, but if you kill someone on purpose, God forbid, then even from the altar, you have to take him away. You might have thought that someone who killed someone on purpose could also find refuge in certain magical places. No, even from the altar itself, you would take him away. The Mechiltas Rabbi Shimon Yochai makes another connection between the altar and death, claiming that if there's an altar, then you can take him out to be killed. If there's no altar, if there is no Beit HaMikdash, if there's no holy temple in Jerusalem, then you cannot execute anyone in general. The Jewish capital punishment came to an end with destruction of a temple or thereabouts. And the Rambam in the Sefer HaMitzvos, his book of laws, he actually mentions this Mechilta de Rabbi Shimon Yochai, this midrash on this point. This link between the altar and life and death is found also at the end of last week's parsha, where it says you should build mizbach avanim tasali. You should really make an earthenware altar, and it should not have metal on it. Ki charbechai naftaleh b'chaleh. There should be no metal, because metal reminds us of death, and the altar is not a place of death. So it's interesting. The person who killed someone wants to come to this altar, which maybe he thinks is a place of slaughtering and death. We say, no, the altar has nothing to do with death. And there's some sort of link then between the altar as a place that brings forgiveness and brings life, and this person who brought death, and he wants to find refuge there. It doesn't work. Tanchuma Yashan in Maseh, one of the Midrashim, says that the way to read this verse is like this. You might have thought that, well, he can't find refuge, since he killed someone on purpose, he can't find refuge in a city of refuge, but maybe someplace else. So the Torah goes very far and says, he can't find refuge anywhere, even in the sanctuary itself, even on the altar itself, if he killed someone on purpose. That's Rabbeinu Bachye, Ibn Ezra, many of the commentators say, that makes no sense. You can't use a religious object to abscond with, to get away with murder. The sanctuary is not a sanctuary. It's not a haven for murderers. It's not a place that is so holy that it has nothing to do with life outside. On the contrary, the sanctuary reflects the life outside. It's an open sanctuary. And if outside this person deserves death, then even in the temple, he still deserves death. The sanctuary is not a place removed from other ethics. It's not as if you're religious, if you're devoted to God, you're in the middle of praying, and you want to stand there and pray all day, we won't take you out to be killed. If this person deserves to be killed, if justice has it that this person needs to be punished, then indeed that's the case. It's the case outside the sanctuary. It's the case inside the sanctuary. Shadal, Rabbi Shmuel David Luzzato, the Italian commentator, he says that in fact, many religions in the ancient times, they did have sanctuary for murder. That in fact, if you look into it, in the medieval church laws, debtors and fugitives could find sanctuary. That's why we call sanctuary a sanctuary. A sanctum, a place where you could find refuge. According to the history of the English language, a holy place is a place where you could get sanctuary from your unethical behavior. Rabbi Soloveitchik of blessed memory writes in an essay in Shiurei Harav about the synagogue. He says, one cannot separate the service of the heart from life. That our synagogues do not separate what you did outside from inside. Well, when we say Shemona Esrei, the prayers, the Amidah, we cannot say, well, I'm unethical at work, and then I'll come and pray to God and be all spiritual. There's no haven from your unethical behavior. And even if you're in the midst of the deepest prayer, the unethical behavior is brought up again and again. Avinu, Chatanu. You cannot stand before God if what's going on the outside is no good. There's a link, as Rav Amital of blessed memory said, the windows of the Beit Midrash, the windows of the sanctuary are open to the outside. Every shul, according to Shulchan Aruch, is supposed to have, I don't know why, usually we don't, but it's supposed to have 12 windows. And the windows mean that there's a link between the inside world and the outside world. A religion is not a haven to escape from our responsibility to the outer world. On the contrary, the more deeply we're in our sanctum, the more we realize our responsibility outside the sanctuary. A famous liberal thinker, Rabbi Yitz Greenberg, a good friend, he made an interesting point. He said that the fact is the Beit HaMikdash is a place bereft of death. It is so far removed from death. As we said, there's no one there who even came in contact within the last 7 days with death. The Kohen Gadol's never been at a funeral in his whole life, or at least his adult Kohen Gadol life. He doesn't go to funerals. He's not totally disconnected from death. You think that somehow this murderer with blood on his hands can somehow find sanctuary because he's acting all pious and religious in the sanctuary? No way. The temple is a sanctuary to life, to the opposite. That altar, in theory, it has no metal on it. In theory, it's a earthenware altar that's dedicated and devoted purely to life, not to death. Of course, you'll ask me, what about the animals? That's a different story. That's contrary. We feel that we, human beings, deserve death. Human beings don't live up to our potential. And we slaughter the animal as a sign, as if to say, that should be me. And hopefully it shouldn't be me. Hopefully I should live a life that I don't deserve to die, that I do deserve to live. And I shouldn't be like this animal, living a merely animalistic life. So on the contrary, it's a symbol to live our lives even better. But the Beit HaMikdash is all about life. And it's not a place for murder. To murder, no sanctuary. The Beit HaMikdash is not a place to escape from our ethical obligations. Thank you for joining us here, the Anshe Sfard Beth Elameth congregation here in Memphis, Tennessee. And join us each week for a discussion of the Parsha, various holidays, and how-to videos as well. Thanks to Jason Lefkowitz for all his technical assistance, and thank you for joining us.
This has been 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein. To learn more, visit ASBEE.org.